Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another Theorizer reaction. And this just came out yesterday, and quite frankly, the title has me, a bit confused, but also intrigued. This is the scariest minute ever filmed. So, yeah, I have no idea what this is about. The description simply says, there is one movie that contains a scene so mind-numbingly scary, it breaks your sense of horror. The movie is Lake Mungo. In an effort to freak you all out, I'm using this scene to analyze raw terror itself so I can identify the true, scariest film of all time and present nightmares in this very video. Yeah, so, I am concerned, but honestly, I am kind of excited to say, hooray, horror's beyond my comprehension. So yeah, I honestly don't have anything else to say on the topic besides, yeah, let's get into this and see what kind of horrors, Theorizer's actually going to be talking about, because again, this is a video that I don't think I've ever seen on their channel before, so, yeah, let's get into this. So, of course, as always, recent videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And, yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Alice Palmer was an Australian girl who went missing while swimming in a dam. The police eventually found her body, and her father identified her, but they start to feel something really wrong. Back at home, they feel like they're being watched, like their daughter is haunting them. They see figures moving in the shadows, they have weird visions, and their friends see Alice in a picture they took on their hike. She's just staring at them from the background. Their son sets up cameras around the house, and sure enough, they see Alice in photos and videos just standing there. They exhume her grave and run a DNA test to confirm if the body they buried was really her, and yes, it was. Frightened by this, they consult a psychic to give them a reading, but it yields no results.
Okay.
Eventually, though,
already terrifying,
footage reveals the son was dressing up as his sister in the forest and faking the footage so he could help his family move on, but it just made things worse. There's
okay, talk about left turn. What? Granted, I know, grief can, make you do weird things, but in what kind of wacky, messed up train of thought logic would you think that dressing up as your dead sibling in photos to pretend that you're being haunted would do any good whatsoever? Like, how do you even come to that conclusion?
Son goes on a trip with the psychic to calm down, but the mom is still suspicious, so she sets up cameras herself and discovers that something genuinely is going on. She sees copious footage of her daughter staring at them while they sleep, alone in their house. This is already terrifying, but then the mother goes over previous footage and sees something else that nobody caught before. She sees their old neighbor sneaking in the back door and doing something in their dead daughter's room. In Alice's safe, the family finds VHS footage of her doing dirty things with the adult neighbors. These neighbors have since moved away, presumably out of fear from being discovered. So the family comes to the conclusion that Alice wants them to know something deeper about her, because she lied about a great deal in her life. They discover her journal, where she writes about meeting with the very same psychic, something he never told them. Alice had met him because she was plagued with a sense that something very bad was drifting closer and closer towards her.
It's getting closer.
But the crux of her whole journal is an obsession with a nature park called Lake Mungo, where she visited on a field trip months before her death. After going over cell phone footage from her classmates, they realized there was something very wrong with her. She was terrified, and like everything else in her life, she never told anyone. They catch her in the corner of some footage burying something. Determined to learn what their daughter was hiding, they travel out to this random nature park, find the hole, and discover her most personal belongings inside, buried with her cell phone. They charge it up, and we finally learn what she saw that night. She had wandered off into the darkness, recording something.
At some point, this figure came towards her from out of the darkness.
I recognised the face as soon as I saw it on the phone video. It was the same face of the body that I had identified at the dam. It was Ellie's body and Ellie's face.
So, she saw her own dead body? Okay, granted, I can see how that would mess somebody up, especially if the said dead body was coming at you. Okay, that's definitely very weird and very freaky. Yes.
Alice Palmer was stalked in the darkness by her own dead corpse months before she drowned. The family has no idea what to make of this. There is no explanation. The footage can't be faked. This drowning is something that hadn't happened yet, so they kind of just accept things and make peace with her death. They don't know what else to do. They believe they finally learnt more about her and that she stopped haunting them. They move out of their house and the film ends. Well, not quite. We see one final session with the psychic, overlaid with Alice's session from when she saw him. We see the mom imagining herself walking into Alice's room, sitting down, and then walking out in peace. Alice's session months earlier had her imagining herself standing in her own room, watching her mom enter, sitting down, and then leaving in peace without ever noticing Alice was even in there. This disturbing, deeply saddening twist reveals that Alice was there the whole time, not just in the bedside footage, but actually in every photo and video that their son doctored, as well as the documentary's own footage, but nobody ever noticed her. She was there all along, sad, watching, alone, and nobody knew. The family found peace and moved on, leaving the house and leaving her behind. The last shot of the film is her, forever trapped at the Lake Mungo hellscape in a terrible storm of misery and loneliness.
Jeez, okay. But again, so the family found peace, but she's obviously hasn't. So again, what was with that whole seeing her dead body and being stalked by it? Like, again, we're still a while before the next section of the video.
Yes, this is fictional. I didn't say that because the whole movie is designed to feel like a hyper-realistic documentary when you're watching it. I had heard about this movie, Lake Mungo. Many people have branded it as cursed and listed it alongside Skinamarink, Hereditary, The Shining, and Inland Empire. The creator went into hiding in real life to make this whole thing feel as cursed as possible.
Really?
But couldn't help but come back recently to co-write that Late Night with the Devil movie. So it has an interesting production history.
I've never heard of that one,
I didn't get around
so
to watching Lake Mungo until I watched a review of it by YouTuber Rockland Graves, not expecting much. Imagine my surprise. I thought it was pretty standard horror until that one scene. I wasn't even watching the movie. It was a review of it. The unexpected surprise at the raw concept of this movie cracked me to the bone. I actually had to look away from my screen. I even commented about it. The sheer idea of your own bloated, soaking body hunting you down in the darkness months before you're even dead broke me more than the visuals did, which themselves are top-notch and exactly scary. This only happened because
I mean, to be fair, the visuals, at least from what I've seen here, do look very convincing and very realistic. But again, I'm kind of like, I'm having it filtered. I'm having the movie filtered through the YouTube video, so I'm not experiencing it full, like, head on. Which, I mean, granted, I'm kind of happy for, because I am an absolute pansy when it comes to horror. I can't do it.
was invested, but didn't expect something so existentially unique. I'm really getting invested in this. It's like the famous dress illusion.
Oh god, oh no.
Where you can see one color or another based on your preconceived notions of the lighting. But by changing your perspective, you can suddenly see the reality rushing in. It's jarring. Either this moment grants you true fear, or just standard ghost stuff. I hadn't expected something like this. It's essentially the doppelganger phenomenon. But this scene scared the ever-loving piss out of the creator of Dr. Sleep and The Haunting of Hill House, and almost all of the horror reviewers. Something's different here. Something cursed. But the good news is, I have expertise in this precise, specific sensation.
Oh,
so
really?
whether you felt the sinking dread during this scene or not, you'll still know the feeling I'm referring to, and let me describe what makes it so life-altering.
Yeah, because currently I'm not quite getting it here, so I'd like an explanation.
I developed a real interest
Ah,
in
white
scary
woman!
movies around the time I started making theories. I was fascinated by the subtle creepiness of an uncanny atmosphere and the sinking dread of an impending nightmare that films can evoke. True-to-life terror. See, on my little horror pyramid here, you start with gross movies like Saw, topped by the Centipede movies,
Ugh.
topped by, YouTube's not even going to let me reference this one, all topped by
Sir?
illegally
What?
distributed clip shows. On the second tier, you would have slasher movies like Chucky, Friday the 13th, and Scream. But then
Yeah?
you have genuinely creepy movies like It, Coraline, maybe even 9, which may not actively be scarier, but the type of horror that they're striving for is more refined and accurate to real life terror.
Okay, well, I mean, Get Out, I mean, from what I've seen of it, Get Out, I could definitely get behind it being, like, super creepy. Coraline, 9, I mean, granted, maybe it's, again, maybe with me, it's just because they're animated, so there's that level of disconnection between them. But yeah, definitely there is a bit of creep factor, especially especially with some scenes in them, especially. So yeah, I could definitely see that. Okay.
Near the top, you have surreal and psychological horror, the sort that sticks with you in the event that it's done correctly. These get harder and harder to achieve as you go up. And so far and away, the peak of scary movies are the ones that
are
you
just
can't quite
wrong.
put your finger on, but they have something really wrong with them. I remember Stephen King tried classifying scary feelings and claimed that this elusive terror was akin to coming home and noticing that everything you own has been taken away and replaced by an exact substitute. That nails it. It's uncanny, inexplicable, and extremely evil. Something means you harm, and you're completely exposed. It's the sort of horror that plays with you through the fourth wall and makes you feel primal terror deep in your stomach, like a sinking feeling beyond description. You realize something's been there the whole time, right there. It's those pictures that say when you see it, you'll shit bricks. You jump scare yourself, and there's nothing more disturbing. Analog horror is the internet's most recent attempt at this, and it succeeded in our video creepypastas. But as years go by, things will start to parody themselves. Primal terror thrives on a lack of clarity.
Yeah, and especially with, internet analog horror, the more you have, the more you're exposed to it, the more you know it. Like, I can remember when, was it Channel 43 or Channel 86? The one with, like, Neptune being wrong or whatever it was. I forget what it was called. But, like, with that one, even to this day, and watching the theories, like, the thought of, like, a planet going wrong, like, that's creepy. And then you have, you know, the other mirror of it, where you have somewhere there where it's like they like, oh yeah, the concept is weird, but then like you have like the visual aid kind of goes not far enough or a little too far, with like the people that are like melty faces, like where it kind of just pulls you out of it. It was like, oh, okay, this is silly. Okay, I can't take this serious now.
In the early years of analog horror, they nailed the feeling. People now, though, are more invested in the idea of analog horror than in replicating true terror. To my knowledge, the Walton Files was the first to do the face stretching, and I honed in on that like a beacon, saying they got that. But a more Lake Mungo-esque analog horror would be maybe This House Has People in It. I was thrilled to watch those, but with each year that passes, new analog horror loses the irreplaceable subconscious intent of the original.
It becomes
All
more
horror
conscious,
movies are
yeah.
in some way striving for this sensation, this real-life fear, but it's insanely delicate to achieve. Of course, you can feel this pretty easily outside of movies. It's simply real-life scary stuff.
Yeah.
Nightmares are the best common example. How you feel when you know something's around that corner, right there, and it wants to hurt you, and it's luring you to it, and you go there anyways, and then you scare yourself awake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thinking about it, actually, I can't remember if I've ever actually had a nightmare. Because, like, I know I've had a couple of dreams where, like, I've woken up and, like, I felt my heart beating. But I can't remember whether that was, because something scary, or more, like, the thing was like, oh, you died, and, like, or if it was more like, oh, I died, and it's like, oh, I'm alive? Am I alive? Oh, I'm alive. You know, that sort of deal. Yeah, I don't think I ever remember myself ever actually having a nightmare before.
The issue is trying to translate that to a screen. You have to break some level of the fourth wall to catch people off guard, even if it's subtle. David Lynch is infamous for having done this over and over again in almost all of his creations. It's incredible. Twin Peaks is fantastic. He understands the exact mechanisms that go into directing this sort of atmosphere, and it's because he's got a great mental connection to the abstract. The other issue with this sort of horror is that you have to sacrifice quite a bit to nail it. Skinamarink is a movie that places you in the shoes of scared children in the dead of night. Just describing it with words doesn't come close to the fear you feel watching it. No. It's incredible, but because it's still a movie and not real life, it has to take these delicate, mysterious tightropes to your fear sensors, and not everybody's trained those specific nerves for the fear of the unknown. Maybe your subconscious connections are slightly different, but that slight difference is enough to break the bridge because of how sensitive it is. If it gets through, it strikes to the core of your being and will haunt you. You feel this way as a kid watching horror movies all the time, but it goes away because you get used to the cliches and conventions and understanding the real world around you.
I mean, going back to the whole analog horror thing, exactly that. I mean, it's the fact that, like, oh, the market is so saturated now, that, you know, you get used to all of the tropes and stuff like that.
Horror used to be able to do it easily for an unaccustomed society. Like Psycho or The Exorcist, nobody expected they'd actually show what they did. But now people are too used to those things, so today, you need to create a new normal to break. Skinamarink takes a very bold approach and tries to straight up put you in those childhood shoes again. Subtlety works too, though, like the timeless Twilight Zone. Hereditary 2 was another recent movie, much more accessible and like less abstract than Skinamarink, very sad too, but it nails the scary moments, primarily using its direction. I noticed many of these use sadness as a potency. The Babadook was another one. Hereditary knows what to show and when to show it, and how to write something, and how to break its own barriers and subvert horror. The angle of things, the way things move, it's unnatural and stilted and very on brand for terror. But you must be invested. Many books strive for terror as it's easier in this format, like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And you of course have traces of terror in most popular horror films too, like Insidious, Sinister, The Ring, so forth. Again, they all try to approximate it. I even felt it in like season 1 of Lost. The most famous terror film
really?
by
Okay.
an ungodly margin is The Shining, but it also didn't need to do as much in this area because, again, it was one of the first to really do it, only against, like, David Lynch's work. It was designed to hurt its viewers, traumatize them with questions, and Stephen King hated that this adaptation sacrificed the rest of his story to do that. There's also cosmic horror, which is a very specific, very untapped area of horror that overlaps highly with terror and has to do with terrifying things beyond our understanding that make your existence mean nothing. Annihilation, The Mist, Color Out of Space, the whole Cthulhu mythos, even Cloverfield and Bird Box, for God's sake, they all fall into this category.
Oh god, thinking back to Annihilation, I remember, like, granted, it might just the way I'm wired, I was more confused by that one. Granted, I mean, the whole, you know, especially when they find, like, one of the first, when they walk in, they find, like, one of the first teams that went in, and they find the footage, and they'd, like, of his, like, intestines wriggling around like worms. Oh, God, that was just creepy. I hated every single minute of it. But again, that was more just a weird disgust and stuff like that. Ugh.
If this sounds familiar to my channel viewers, yes, cosmic horror is like Mort. These movies can struggle, though, because
I
they're
know I
often
need to
science
watch the
fiction,
Mort theory.
And the more you show, the less scary it becomes. This is especially true when including tentacle monsters, because it becomes less foreboding when you show some goofy prop. Event Horizon, you know, that was a cosmic horror film that piqued my interest because of its terror. And it did something truly remarkable. See, some films show way too much and it becomes goofy, as I said.
Yeah.
Smart films show less. But there are also rare, elusive, perfect films that actually show the thing and succeed. And it becomes 10 times more shocking than anything else because they do it right. The visual is as creepy as the mystery. I've tried this for years. I frequently experiment on my second channel by making images that lack something human, and I feel like they stare into your soul by lacking clarity.
Ugh. Yeah, that's stuff I don't like at all. Like, not at all. Yeah, I'm skipping forward a little
Only
bit.
the best terror creators are successfully achieving this, and Event Horizon did it, but I don't quite know how. It wasn't about monsters, and it wasn't even scary imagery like those faces, but it had the nerve to show things after withholding it, and oddly enough, it was simple gore, but the extent to which it was done, in the context, makes this the most visually horrific thing that I think exists in a mainstream movie. And
I mean, granted, I mean, there was that whole thing, the theory that, you know, Event Horizon was like the humanity's first exposure to the warp in 40K. So, I mean, there's definitely that layer to it right there.
the conceptual fears there too, like a haunted house in space, a scientific explanation for hell, that's batshit raw. And just weeks ago,
Yeah.
I watched In the Mouth of Madness. Perfectly uncanny, especially the bike scene. It nailed it. But in its zeal to incorporate all of its love letters to cosmic horror, it also dealt in tentacles, which is a risky move to make. But nevertheless, I still think it's the most accessible and accurate cosmic horror movie ever. So terror happens. But then there's something like Lake Mungo.
Being haunted by your own corpse. Ugh.
This is the scariest thing I have ever seen. I have gotten the sinking feeling, the sudden jumps, plenty of times when seeing these kinds of movies. Twin Peaks being by far the most successful at this. The final moments of season 3 flayed me alive. But I've never gotten the shivering chills up my spine from terror in particular. I get it from nostalgia, I get it from very well crafted art, but not fear. Twin
Nostalgia?
Peaks came close, but this shot straight to the core when I first heard about it, then read comments about it, then watched it for myself. It shot straight to the core and it wouldn't let go. This movie only works when you're invested in the mystery of it, without assuming it's going to be scary. Watch it when you're interested in seeing a documentary. The truly scary moments only hit with their full potential when you get a flood of implications from them. You have to be thinking about exactly what it means when watching, otherwise it won't be particularly scary. If you can do this, that scene will cause a sinking feeling and chills when you realize what you're looking at. Now, there are horrors you don't want to look at. Images so creepy you feel like you have to look away, closing your eyes in a nightmare, needing to scream but having no mouth. Well, Lake Mungo's climax is the conceptual scenario equivalent of that, because I don't want to even think about it. So much so that I'm dedicating an entire essay on its conceptual intricacies of quality, something I've only done like once before. This movie spends all of its time establishing how realistic it is. It presents a ghost story, then reveals exactly how it's a hoax. Then it reveals there's an even
actually
bigger
was a ghost story,
reveals exactly how it's a bigger hoax, explaining every last possibility for how it worked. But then it reveals the cell phone footage. This moment knocks you into oblivion. This is a film that has crafted a new normal and broken it so many times that you know nothing can be real or bother you. But then it shows something that doesn't just defy its own rules, but defies how time and space work, how filmmaking works, how reality works, and is something you've never actually seen in another movie. It spends
thinking about it, like how, I mean, I guess the part of the horror comes from, you know, there actually was something there the whole time, you know, something like that. Also just the thought that you're trapped in like this weird, nebulous afterlife, whatever it is. And you're able to see your loved ones. You can't touch them. You can't communicate. And you see them just drift away. And you're just left there all by yourself. Like, that is terrifying right there. You're just left there.
The first 2/3 setting up and breaking cliches to ultimately in the end not just crush more cliches, but everything you think you know about horror, and then it just comes out of it nowhere. This movie is dangling something really, really, really bad, very clearly very evil in front of you, and it refuses to tell you what it is before just abruptly ending. This scene should not exist. It's like finding a cursed copy of a horror film, one that scares you and not the characters, like an anti-piracy screen made into cinema. It's all about the subtlety in which the fourth wall is decimated in the name of abject horror. Lake Mungo's creators aim to hurt you through the fifth wall, the sixth wall, the seventh wall, and it even preys on fears of time flow, which is very niche. Simply, what happened to Alice at Lake Mungo can't happen. This doesn't happen anywhere. You stared too long and saw something you shouldn't have.
Absolutely horrible.
It crams every kind of horror into this one moment, and either you felt it or you didn't. It's invasively personal and meticulous by design. Some movies sacrifice everything in the name of one moment, like Predestination. It had an unusual two-act sort of structure, with the first half being a life story and the second half being a time travel sci-fi with tons of twists. But it was all to build to one scene that defines the entire movie. Lake Mungo did this, but with terror. It did it. And it is a slow burn. The movie isn't scary. This moment is. So Lake Mungo breaks itself. It's 10 times scarier when you don't know it's going to be scary. It's not like other movies. It's perfectly acted like a documentary, and you must get invested. You will be sorely disappointed if you watch it for the wrong reasons. And I haven't even gotten into the direction. Yes, it's acted highly realistically and makes you forget it's even fiction, but the editing, sound design, cinematography, all 100% in tune with the Lynch effect and uncanniness. The movie prides itself on slow zoom-ins akin to When You See It pictures, and the doppelganger perfects the uncanny look in the most primal sense. It's interesting because the uncanny valley has been studied a bit and most likely evolved in humans as a fear response to dead bodies so you don't contract disease. It's why zombies are scary. But this is like a completely dead body that's still drifting. That's primal, original fear. And you can't quite make out the faces. Is she horrified here like a ghoul? Is she staring down at Alice here? What kind of knowing, deeply demonic expression is this?
Actually thinking about it, like, if I may do a little theorizing here, did she do it to herself? Like, she's left, you know, like her family moves on, she's left in like this weird limbo, deathless state. Like, what if she went back and literally scared herself, setting this whole thing into motion in the first place? So then it was just a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, God. It's even worse. She did it to herself.
What is this implying? The silhouettes, the angles, the visual mystery. Perfect. And that's what horror fans will look for. But the concepts really send it over the edge. It's not the scariest movie. It's a movie that happens to contain the scariest scene. And it's built that way. It's designed to terrify the people who fear. The whole thing feels like something very bad is going to happen.
Fear. Yeah, that definitely works for me.
Dread.
I'm one of them.
You feel it coming. Then it's there. You know you've seen it. You know it's thrusting its twist at you, whatever it means. You're finally seeing what they've been hinting to. Something you were never supposed to see. She buried this footage. Again, so meticulous. Every piece of fear, it floods everything when you watch it. And it's very sneaky because it even proves in its scariest moments never to jump scare. That's not how it works. And then it does. Once. It sets up a new normal and
only
breaks it
once.
with one shot. With the most uncanny shot. Not a ghost, but her. As ever, I'm starting to lose my voice. If this video performs good, I'll make a full theory on the plot, but I'll give you some brief ideas. There's clearly some really freaking weird thing going on with
very much so, yeah.
Stuff and reversals, the car moving backwards, the reversed order of things, the psychic stuff, and her drowning in a dam, but meeting her own ghost at a dried up lake. The darkness being the bottom of the water, the jump sound
yeah, that's
being
definitely one, yeah.
I have
Okay.
a few ideas. First, I'd be remiss not to mention the most prevalent online fan theory, that being that her true unfinished business was supposed to be them learning who killed her, that it was her brother, who did it of his own sexual guilt after finding her tapes with the neighbors. Makes lots of sense. I had a really neat theory when watching
Oh,
it,
geez,
and that was
okay.
this. What if it was never her, and this doppelganger was the body they found? That this thing hunted and replaced her that day, and she's missing somewhere else? To match the tone, we shouldn't have seen this. She was agonizingly erased. I don't know how to... I don't even... See, this is the kind of thing the movie makes you feel, and they don't tell you. Was it the psychic who staged the whole hoax and killed her, or something to do with the neighbors, hence he didn't tell anyone? These are all ideas, but they do sometimes jeopardize the fear factor, as
God.
explanation is the death of the cryptic and the uncanny. So I can elaborate on these ideas if people want, but as this video and previous ones should demonstrate, I thrive when making scary things normal and normal things scary. This theory then would be very
Yeah, that
coherent,
definitely works.
because there's a real mystery to solve. It's just the lore now. The entire psychology and motivation of the film's existence is clear. People were irritated that I tried to be utterly emotionless in my last theory, so I've tried to be a little more emotive here, but as you can see, I lose my voice very quickly. After all these years, I still don't exactly know how to record. Finally, in this film, never in my life have I seen a bigger love letter to Twin Peaks, and I mean that in every single way humanly possible. It's like it accessibly bridges the gap that Lynch and I
Really?
did between
Okay.
sane and insane. And rest in peace to that man. Maybe I'll cover Inland Empire someday. But no, I'll see you in a few weeks for a f***ed up theory on Bill Murray's Garfield instead.
Oh, okay, that's the theorizer I know. Live action Garfield theory. Oh, that's gonna be great. Yeah. Again, the whole thing, the idea, the best way to describe me, fearing fear. Yeah, that definitely describes me. I don't like getting scared. I don't like getting angry. I don't like those extreme emotions. The idea that the fear of this movie comes from the fact that, like, oh, what happened to Alice couldn't happen. She couldn't have seen her own corpse. She couldn't have recorded it, but it did, and she did, and now she's dead. Oh, God, that is creepy. Again, not something I would ever watch, because again, I don't like getting scared. I don't like fear. But you got to respect when stuff is done correctly, even if it's not something you like. Oh, God. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say on the topic besides that was really weird. But yeah, that's definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, of course, as always, Original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.